You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
It's the animated Star Trek that's so good we just can't let it go. Season 5 might be in the rearview mirror, but we want more. And tonight, we'd also like to give a look under the hood. It's Monday at 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern, and you are here, and we are here, and that can only mean it's Mission Log Live. I'm John Champion.
And I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson. You all know you're going to have to pry the show from my cold, desiccated hands. So tonight we're simply going to continue with our celebration of all things Lower Decks. It's that easy. John says we can, so here we are. But we're mostly here to celebrate some really exceptional guests whose last names I should have asked how to pronounce before we did this. So we're gonna put our hands together in the Theater Kid round of applause to welcome some of the amazing people who helped bring the show to life. Chris Prynoski and Barry Kelly.
Good. Yeah, you got it right. Good,
nice.
Good.
Hey, John.
Thank you so much. They are our guests tonight. They are here to take your questions, to be so kind to me because they simply have no other choice. So if you want to come and experience the same grace that I have today, click on that Zoom link or give us a call at 669-900-6833. Earl is holding it down in the Earl Green Room just for you, just for me, just for all of us lost souls here on the internet. So again, just click the Zoom link or call in now. 669-900-6833.
That's it. You know the drill, and you know you're going to talk to these guys anyway because there are so many questions about Lower Decks yet to be answered, particularly the how-to, and I love that kind of thing. So I'm glad to have Chris and Barry tonight with us. And while you are clicking on the link or giving us a call and hanging out with Earl in the Earl Green Room, let's say hi to folks who have joined us in the live chat. I saw early on, right when we got here, Paul Harveth and Ashley saying hi to us and hi to each other. So pleasure to see you both. There's Mike, Captain Mike Richards. Glad that you're here. Let's see, there's Jane. There's the Welch guy. I think that's a new one for me. So hi, Welch guy. There's Carlos. There's Alan. Do we have a Paul Fecta? I don't know how many Pauls we've got tonight. Maybe, just maybe. I think we got 2 Daves.
Is
there's
there ever
Jim.
enough Pauls?
I know there's never enough Pauls. There's a couple of Daves, and let's see who else. Everybody just saying Lower Decks, Lower Decks, Lower Decks, and a couple of Happy New Years in there as well. By the way, there's our own Jessica Lynn Verdi there. Special announcement coming up in just a minute, so stay tuned for that. Scott Palm, pleasure to see you there.
Scott.
Heather, everybody else, glad to see you. And I already see people lined up in the chat. Yes, Earl, you were right. So before we get to that, welcome everybody. And let's talk about what's coming up on Roddenberry Podcast this week. Again, welcome back everybody from our holiday break. A new episode of Genealogy dropped today with a look at the very first episode of Wrangler. And that was Episode at Bar M. Now, Wrangler, of course, is the lost Gene Roddenberry series, the very first one to air with his name on it as creator. So check out the preview episode from a couple of weeks ago with me and Rod Roddenberry, and then dive into each episode. By the way, there are 8 scripts. There are 7 that were filmed. There were 6 that aired. We're going to give you the whole story. Dive into those each week with Ashley and Earl. You know where to find it at all of your favorite podcast platforms. Look for Gene-ology. And Mission Log The Orville is back with a short run of special episodes for the month of January. They have got some great interviews lined up that you do not want to miss. And our friends over at Master Replicas, hi Ben Robinson, they have put together an incredible giveaway just for our listeners. So have a look.
Hey Orville fans, Captain Mike Richards here with my co-pilot Jessica Lynn Verdi.
That's right, we're the hosts of Roddenberry Entertainment's Mission Log The Orville, your episode-by-episode deep dive into Seth MacFarlane's The Orville. We have got galactic news for you. Are you ready to get your hands on the entire line of the Orville-themed ships thanks to Master Replicas, including the newly released Pterodon?
These replicas are stunning, and we're giving them all away to one lucky fan. Whether you're a hardcore Orville enthusiast or just love collecting epic sci-fi memorabilia, this giveaway is for you.
Entering is super easy, and there are multiple ways to boost your chances of winning, and we're going to tell you how. But first,
But first,
Make sure you're subscribed to Roddenberry Entertainment's YouTube channel. You hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, so you know when we drop a brand new episode of Mission Log The Orville.
during the whole month of January, we'll bring you updates, interviews, and more every Wednesday. Enter by signing up for Master Replica's newsletter. Check out the full list of ways to enter in the description below.
The more entries, the better your chance of winning this incredible set of Orville ships. And be sure to enter by January 27th.
Picture these on your shelf, your desk, or anywhere you want to show off your Orville pride. This is your chance to bring a piece of the galaxy home to you.
The winners will be announced during our last episode of our 4-episode series on January 29th, so stay tuned and get those entries in.
Don't miss out on this cosmic giveaway. We can't wait to see who
We've won, or almost won, not quite won.
I think you can tell that we were all in such shock. So you
Yes.
better be in as much shock too, because you're the ones who are going to be able to enter to win the entire collection from Master Replicas. Not one ship, not a ship of your choice, all of the ding dang ships. So stay tuned for more information on how you can do just that, how you register, how you win, and make sure, of course, that you are following at Roddenberry Podcast on the Instagrams and at Roddenberry Pod on the blue skies for the latest. Because
Ashley, that's the first time that anybody has said ding dang on a Roddenberry podcast. I don't know if that's a Canadian thing or an Ashley thing or what, but we're going
Why
to
not
stick with it
both?
now. I love it. I love it. Yeah.
why not both? But okay, I'll tell you another great ding dang diddly thing that's coming in Roddenberry. Mission Log Prodigy, my beloved Mission Log Prodigy, dropping on Tuesdays with an interview with an amazing writer. His name
Yes.
is Jen Murrow. Jen Ding Dang Murrow. See, look, even the arm
love
is
it.
excited about it.
The anticipation was
I
incredible.
know, Jen.
Ooh,
Oh,
wait,
hey.
wait.
We're going to
wait.
talk about Jen in a moment.
I didn't pronounce your name correctly. So as always, follow all of our shows at podcast.roddenberry.com. Make sure that you also like, subscribe, click all the bells that you can possibly click on for all of the content here at youtube.com/Roddenberry Entertainment. Like this video that you are watching right this very dang second.
All right, it's a level of controlled chaos that we can barely keep in anymore because you have heard hints of our very special guests, Chris Prynoski and Barry Kelly from Titmouse Animation. Wait, did I get it right? I don't know if I got it
You
right,
got it.
Chris.
You got it right. Everybody
it.
got it right.
Okay, all right.
Everybody did it.
Is
It's
is
rare.
that,
Downhill
is that a
from
Polish
here.
background? 'Cause
It is.
Okay, there we
Yeah.
go. I know. Look, I lived in Chicago a number of years, ate a lot of Polish food, and that just it sounded right. So
Nice.
welcome, Chris, president and founder, creator, owner of Titmouse Animation, and Barry Kelly. You're in here too, director of many episodes of Star Trek Lower Decks, and
There you
and
are.
I was peeping your IMDb, a lot of storyboard and supervising producer roles, and you worked on Raiders of the Lost Lunch, which I need to know
Oh my
about.
gosh.
Yeah.
That was one of my first jobs. That was like Scooby Doo. It was a Scooby Doo.
Ah.
That's hence the funny name.
Gotta find out about all of it. We'll welcome both of you, and we do have some callers lined up. We do have a lot to get into. Just to kind of set the stage here, though, Chris, I want to ask you. Talk to me about this, because my understanding after talking to Rod and Trevor and other people here on the Roddenberry Entertainment end of things, there's like, it seems like there was a bit of surprise going from Titmouse, the t-shirt company, to Titmouse, the animation production company. Can you sort
Yeah.
of give us the nutshell version of getting from there to here?
Oh man. Yeah. I'll try to keep it short though. How's this? Is it, do I gotta do? Is it okay if I'm here?
You
Or
sound
do I
like $1
gotta
million
be here?
bucks. Yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of like it's a good story. Our PR people would probably tell me not to like stick with the story and not get too truthful, but I'm going to give you guys the real truth. I mean,
There we go.
I was working in animation, working at the studios, and directed and created shows, working on shows before I decided to make a t-shirt company, right? But then I did as like a side job, and I thought it would be fun to sell t-shirts on the internet in the early 2000s, and it was, but it wasn't like it didn't really pan out to be a real business, It's like we sold some here and there every once in a while. But then I started to get all this freelance work, right? And then my wife Shannon, who founded the company with me, was like, "Well, she was producing commercials at the time. She's like, I'll just stop. I won't take on any more commercials. I'll just help you produce your freelance work until we get over this hump." And then she was like, producing and producing. We kept getting more and more freelance jobs, and then eventually we started paying our artists through Titmouse instead of like personal checks because we had a company. And it's like, well, this company exists. Let's use it. And then actually the first job we used it on was this movie, Freddy Got Fingered, which is Tom Green's movie where I did
Canada's
the animated sequence in the
beloved.
middle. Yeah. I also drew all the drawings that were supposed to be Tom Green's drawings. And I could tell this is one of my favorite claims to fame that Rip Torn jammed one of my drawings up his butthole in that movie. If you watch the movie, you can see the scene. But anyway,
Wow.
in 2004 is when Titmouse started to get rolling, and Shannon was like, "You gotta quit your job at Cartoon Network and focus on this full time." And I was like, "That's crazy. Like, I'm running a show at Cartoon Network. You just don't do that. You don't leave. And this is how we make money is I work on the network shows, and this is our side project." And she was like, "If you quit your job and focus on this will be how we make money." And I was like, "All right, will you give it a shot? Why not?" Right. And then it worked out. I'm glad it worked out. I'm glad she pushed me to do it.
And also now everybody here owns at least one Titmouse shirt
Yeah,
and watches
yeah,
all
yeah,
the
yeah,
shows. So you
pretty
won
much.
both battles.
I feel like half of the reason we got, look, I'm getting way off of your question now, but I'm just going to roll with it and we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
Half of the reason we're doing Lower Decks, or we did Lower Decks, is when I met with Mike McMahon the first time. He was like, "Yeah, I love your studio, this and that, whatever, studio, fine. But I really love the Venture Brothers T-shirt club. Do you think we could do something like that for Lower Decks?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely. We can do something like that for Lower Decks."
Yes.
But we call it the T-shirt Collective.
It's
no,
not the
Lower
T-shirt
Decks.
club. Yeah.
Ooh,
Right.
it's for grown-ups, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
Right.
getting a hell yeah in the chat already. So, yeah, excellent. And then
Which Barry has worked on both of those shows. by
I
the
was
way.
about to ask, yeah,
Right.
Barry, how do you enter into the picture?
When I think I moved to LA when Titmouse was probably still just the small T-shirt side project, but I worked at Raiders of the Lost Lunch was at a studio called Animax that was kind of a competitor to Titmouse. I pretty much moved to LA thinking I knew how to draw, and I didn't know how to draw. I met people, professionals like Chris and other people, and they're like, "You know how to draw? Like, what are you talking about?" And then I realized, oh, this is what it takes to be a professional. And then it took me like 10 more years of like focusing on drawing and trying to stop, playing video games and things like that. While I was like editing,
Drawing muscle men. You've drawn a lot of muscle men.
Yeah, they're like, you have a lot of green muscle men in your portfolio. The anatomy is not right. You should get your anatomy right. If that's all
Like, I
you're going to
can't
draw all day.
possibly tell you why.
Yeah.
By the way, anybody who's getting the audio only version of this, you owe it to yourselves. Come check out the video at some point to see all of the Hulk collection behind Barry here. It's pretty impressive.
Just
So-
a little bit. There's
Oh, look at that! Just a few. Yeah.
But yeah, I happen to like green muscle elf people, giant men. Aside from that, I eventually, after working in the animation industry for like 10 years or so, 2008 was like a boom. Like, there was always these animation bubbles that happen, and I found myself without a job. And Chris P was making this show at Titmouse, which is a studio I always wanted to work for, called Motor City. And they brought me in for an interview, and me and Chris kind of connected on what would we call that? Like a mutual friend in a way. We were both huge fans of
Was
Howard.
he a green muscle guy?
No, it was a tall, gangly man on the radio.
We're both weird, like Howard Stern super fans. So
Okay.
Yeah, there was like something. There was like a server name, a particular name, which I won't say here, on a server, and I was like, "That's a very specific name. Is someone here a Howard Stern fan?" And he's like, "I am," and I was like, "Oh, I know you." And it was like we instantly had like the same friends or something, and like we knew each other, and then I worked on that show, Motor City, and ever since at Titmouse, they've been giving me more like artistic chances and really developing me as an artist, and that was like almost 13 years now, and we
Whoa.
went from Venture
Man, it's
Motor
that
City
long.
to I know we went from like Venture Brothers to Moonbeam City to Son of Zorn, and eventually like I found myself on some Star Wars projects, and finally on the big what do you call it? The big
Was
big
there a
Star
moment,
Trek.
Barry, where you
Yeah.
were on the tail end of the Star Wars series and on the beginning of Star Trek? Was that like did you ever have a cross to solve?
Oh yeah. For
Yeah,
sure. Because like we
because
were
that was a
done.
big issue, back in the days before the pandemic when everything was in the real world.
Yeah.
We had to have all these key cards to keep the Star Wars and Star Trek stuff separate because the clients were like, we can't have these Star Trek and Star Wars and Star Trek shows
Yeah.
mingling, although Barry was working on both of them. So
I admire the fact that Barry personified the Simpsons joke of being bi sci-fi.
Sci-fi con. But I think work was done on both, but like it was like they weren't out yet, so it's like still like you feel needed to like promote.
Barry is like
you know
the
what I mean.
J.J. Abrams of animation. He's directed both Star Wars and Star Trek projects.
Yeah.
Lucky few.
Hey, before we go to our first caller, John, I see you there waiting patiently to jump in. But I do want to ask something real quick just to bring it all together. What then was the connection that led to Lower Decks? Was it CBS saying, hey, Mike, you need to meet these guys? Or CBS saying to you, Titmouse, boy,
Well,
you really need to do this project?
The animation industry is really small, right? And Mike, I've known for a long time because he worked at Titmouse on a show called China, Illinois in the writer's room. That was a Brad Neely show for Adult Swim. So he came to us, we and some of the other producers on the show, Katie Krentz, different people were trying to connect us. We also knew the CBS Studios folks. So it's like it came to us through multiple paths. But really, the person that you have to convince or you have to sell on, like, this is how we're going to handle your show is Mike, right? That's the only person I cared about. It's like you want to make sure that the show is good. I mean, hey, the CBS execs are nice and all, but you want to make sure that the creative leads are comfortable and happy. And that's what we pride ourselves on is like, we don't have any one pipeline that works for every show. We like to our producers, like, I don't know if I'd say horror, but like it would be a lot easier if we used the same pipeline for every show, but we kind of just look at the creative and create what needs to happen for that show for each and every different show. And I think Mike knew that we would treat it well. I mean, I'm a huge Star Trek fan, as are many animators. And also one of the things is we were about to expand our studio out of Hollywood and into the Valley, and specifically Burbank. And Mike was very interested in that. He's like, oh, do I have to drive to Hollywood every day? I'm like, no, actually, we're just about to move into Burbank. And he's like, oh, thank goodness. That sounds great. So Part of it is parking, part of it was, I think, the creative, and a big part of it was that we would do some T-shirts.
Yeah, all makes sense.
It always comes back to the t-shirts.
Yes. Well, let's say hi to our first caller. John, welcome. How's it going? Thanks for your patience tonight. How are you?
Oh, no, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me. Chris and Barry, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. It's been such a joy, like, falling in love with Lower Decks and watching the show grow and change.
Thank you.
And it's been, it's like become, one of my favorite iterations of Star Trek of all time. And so it's I really appreciate all the work you guys have done.
Thank you.
Really appreciate that.
So, my question would be, looking back on, where the show ended up, what if you could talk to yourselves at the beginning of production, what would be the biggest surprise as to how the show developed and ended after these 5 years?
Oh, man.
That's a tough question.
Very
That's
interesting.
deep.
Biggest surprise. Oof, you go on this one, Barry.
Yeah,
Barry's much closer to the ground on the show than I am.
I mean,
By the way, I mean, you guys are new here, but when John Arminio calls in, he's not messing around. So
Right.
this
No,
is,
he's
we
the
go to him for the
smartest
good
among us.
questions.
sniper.
Ashley and I are just here to like hype and go, this is all fun.
Yeah.
And then John comes in and like, we know it's going to be heavy and important.
I am Captain Overthink.
Welcome
we
to the
love
club. Yeah, we're in the same, share the same blood right here. I think a big surprise is just how much of a Star Trek show it is, and less of a comedy. I think it is truly like a Star Trek show that carries the spirit. And I think like when we were first coming out with the first season, I think the animation is always kind of the bastard stepchild to live action in a way.
Uh-oh. I think
Uh-oh.
we have a
Animated
frozen
Dude.
Barry.
Oh,
there
he's
we go.
back.
Oh, there he is.
Oh no, you hear me?
All right. Yeah,
Oh,
we
sorry about
got
that. Could you hear me the whole time or no?
Animation is a bastard child to live action. I think
Yeah,
That's what we
So
got.
okay, so I think like there was a handful of people who were just going to check out the moment they heard there was an animated Star Trek, and I think that all of us kind of knew that first season that like this is a good show. We believe in it, and I think
Yeah.
that's one thing we know that we're making. We believe in a good show a year before anybody ever sees it, and
Yeah.
people like you watching it realize or learn maybe after season 2, season 3, even if you didn't give it a shot right away, that it truly is in the spirit of Star Trek, and it always surprises me. I think every script surprises me in a way that like it wraps up like a great Star Trek episode. It's never too crass. Even though we have crass jokes, we cuss sometimes. We have a bleep. And I think what really surprised me is that we actually did make an awesome Star Trek show that fits right in.
Absolutely,
With TNG, Deep Space Nine. I feel like it honors those shows, and at the same time has a lot of fun that people, even if you're not a fan of Star Trek, can really love. I think I'm just surprised that we towed the line so well, and that like the Star Trek really comes through above the comedy.
Yeah, one thing that we always try to, this is an offshoot of your question, but I'm rolling with what Barry introduced here, is we don't have any kind of house style at the studio, right? We try, that goes with like what's right for the creative. But one thing we really try to dig into is authenticity, right? Of like whatever the subject matter it is, whatever the material is, we try to like make sure that it's authentic to what it needs to be, right? And I had to the question of like, hey, when it started and when it ended, what was a big surprise, right? One of the most harrowing and like stressful conversations I had with Mike McMahon was near the end of the first season, right? The supervising director is a really important role in an animated show. They're basically the conduit from the showrunner to make sure that the show, the timing, the boards, the design, like everything works and it all comes together. And Barry fulfills that role and more currently. But on the first season, it was Juno Lee, right, who is a longtime Titmouse employee and one of our officers here. And I had sold Mike so hard on Juno. I'm like, he's the guy. He is the perfect guy. You're getting our best guy. He's not just any supervising director. He's an officer in the company. He's worked on all our best shows, everything you love. You love Venture Brothers. He was the supervising director on that, so on and so forth. Near the end of the first season, one of the pilots that Juno had directed for another property on another network got picked up, and Juno was offered an executive producer role. And I had to go to Mike and be like, I'm so sorry. Juno, who you love and who has done a great job with this first season, now has to leave. But, and I had talked to Barry ahead of time on this, but Barry, who's an episode director on this first season, is the guy who I think should be the supervising director for all subsequent seasons. And not only did Barry step up in a huge way, but unlike Juno, because Juno knew of Star Trek, but he wasn't a super deep, huge Star Trek fan. I'm like, Barry is he's a Star Trek super fan. So you'll get that too out of him. Not just, it'll be like Juno plus. And Mike was skeptical, but after, a month into that second season, he was like, yeah, you're right. You're right. So that was different. We started with one supervising director and ended with a different one, which is not frequently the case in an animated series.
Yeah, and Juno and I were co-directors together for like many years, so it's kind of like we
Yeah.
worked hand in hand for a
They
long
speak
time.
the
So,
same language.
yeah, so like it's weird to say like I felt like me and Juno were both directing that first season, so it's like
Yeah.
I knew even though I was picking up where he left off, like I was there from the beginning, right there with him. So it was almost like I just had to like continue on what he set up already.
You could just give in to the full power fantasy because nobody was going to tell you no.
Right.
That's definitely how it works.
Hey, Barry, can I ask you about that a little bit? I'm curious. So I kind of look at the history of Star Trek, and there's not a right or wrong approach as a director. I mean, some people are fans, some people aren't. Some people, like Nick Meyer famously, didn't know anything about Star Trek, but he cranks out some of the best Star Trek films ever, right? As a fan, coming into this project and then directing a lot of these episodes, did you feel ever like, oh, okay, well, this thing isn't, it's not Star Trek enough. I need to push it. I need to do things that kind of satisfy my own fan or what I think other fans are going to want. Or are you able to push that aside a little bit and just say, no, I just need to tell the best story. Need to be true to the characters. What happens there?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it right. The on that little latter half that like you just got to be true to the story, but like. There's two things going on. There's within the actual storytelling of the show, because we're a comedy and we're a sci-fi show, and there's always like a sci-fi adventure backdrop. I'm literally having to be like shot by shot. I'm like, is this a comedy shot or is this a Star Trek shot or sci-fi shot? And that's kind of a vague way of talking about it. But like in a comedy shot is kind of like your typical sitcom, I guess, where you have like four people, or you try to show everybody because you want all the reactions from everybody. Like if someone says something stupid, you want that person on the far other side of the screen to be like, what? Did that guy just say something stupid? Like, because that's what makes it funny. And then, or it all of a sudden kicks into adventure mode and you want a little bit more of a cinematic storytelling, or we need to like, we just take every moment seriously, essentially. Is like we need to take the comedy seriously and shoot it like a comedy, or every other emotion that comes out of the show, whether it's supposed to be sad or terrifying, we would just lean into how, like, what it actually needs to be. So there's always like, but in just simple terms in my head, I'm like, is this a sci-fi mode or do I need to switch to comedy mode? And for as far as the crew goes, I didn't care if you were a Star Trek fan or not. Like we have a lot of Star Trek filters, which are people on the crew who are already huge Star Trek fans, and sometimes you need those extra voices who are maybe it's new to them to kind of point out maybe something like, yeah, I don't know why they do that. I don't know why I never thought about it. I took it, as I just took it as the Bible or something, like I just took it as but you know what I'm saying. But yeah, I just need someone to kind of like check me out of it, just to check me out of like being such a fan, and just to point out things like, yeah, we don't. I don't know why we need to do things that way. We can actually just change it up. And with some cartoon liberty, those kind of artists would help us kind of like take us out of like needing to be so strict with how we're doing things like to Star Trek, and kind of break out of it and be more of a comedy or just lighten up a little bit for the levity of the show.
Did you fall into the inevitable trap of trying to figure out how currency works?
or when they mention currency and you're like, do they know what a bank is?
Anytime it's anything other than Latinum, I'm like, I don't know what's happening.
We are very quickly coming up on our mid-show break. John Armenio, any final thoughts or questions here before we jump into a little business?
I've taken up enough of your time, so thank you, gentlemen. I really
Never.
appreciate you coming on, and
Thank you, John.
thanks for all your great work. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right. John, take care, my friend. Till next
You too,
time.
sir.
We have waiting in the queue Brandon, Alan, Paul. Anybody else wants to call in, we will get you seen and heard tonight. But before we do that, hang on just a second because we need to take care of a little bit of business here. First and foremost, we want to remind people to join us at the Mission Log Patreon because, of course, that is how you get to the Mission Log Discord, our private server where so much more happens. You can get there with patreon.com/missionlog. Ashley, what happens in Discord? So many things, right?
So many things. A lot of things happen in the Discord. One of them, which is not on here, is Kon-Tiki, that I had a blast being on for my first time, and I just want to say,
Yes.
if you have never done a Kon-Tiki, well worth doing a Kon-Tiki. But besides that, international chat is my favorite place to lurk because I like to know where everybody lives and who has a guest house that I can stay at. Twilight Zone, Mission Log After Dark, the one that I always mispronounce, so now it's John's turn to tell you what the other channel
The
is called.
Zocalo. The Zocalo is our weekly Babylon Babylon 5 Chat Friday afternoons, hosted by Shar and Norman. Kontiki, I'm so glad they made it Kontiki. What a cool hangout. Battlestar Galactica Monday nights at 6 as your lead-in to our live show. There's so much there, and that it's not even just the chats, it's all the text threads, everybody hanging out, just sharing their fandoms, their passions. It's great. So you can join by joining patreon.com/missionlog. You will get your key to our private Discord, and we'll see you there. It's such a respite, such a great place to get away from the noise of social media. Join us over on our Discord. We will see you there. And just a little bit more business to take care of. You may have heard us say before that if you join us on January 18th, there will be a live event. Wait, what's that? I heard that somebody else has joined us tonight to tell us more about Trek Talks 4. John Billingsley, get in here.
I feel badly that I jumped into the middle of your panel. I was waiting patiently in the green room, and the next thing I know...
Here you were. John... You're always
Jolene
welcome.
Blaylock and I had a contractual commitment to each other that she would not appear without me. As the two aliens on Enterprise, you're going to have to come back.
Where is she?
For a 6th season and bring me back.
Love that.
Yeah.
And my credit would just be John. Trek Talks. Yes, thank you, John, for giving me this opportunity. Trek Talks, January 18th, Saturday, 10 to 6, a convention without pants. I don't wear pants. It's up to you. 8 hours of fabulous Star Trek content to raise money and awareness for Hollywood Food Coalition, which is a wonderful organization that I have been working with for the last 8 years, that among other things helps rescue about 3 million pounds of food a year in Los Angeles to share with about 150 not-for-profits to augment and buttress their meal programs. We do lots of very cool things. But for those of you who couldn't care less about charity, I know you ain't out there because you're Star Trek fans, just come for the wonderful content. I'll nag you to make a contribution. My role is to play the Jerry Lewis guy. I'll nag you to make a contribution, but you'll have a lot of fun. Bob Picardo and Kate Mulgrew are going to be there. Some fabulous Lower Decks folks, including Mike McMahon, Don Lewis are going to be there. Eugene Cordero. Oh, gosh. Who else? Who am I forgetting, John?
All the people. Just
Discovery.
So many. Yes.
1 hour long Discovery panel. There'll be a science panel. The writers have written autobiographies.
We got Kate Mulgrew coming on the show, for God's sake. Come on.
For God's sake.
Yeah. So everybody knows what to do. You go to trektalks.net, Trek Talks 4, January 18th, all day, hang out, watch the stream, and donate because, of course, you should. John, are you wearing pants at the moment?
I thought I almost took my pants off. And
you hesitated.
I wanted to save it for the 18th.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Because that was a question in the chat. So many people asking if you were wearing pants. They also suggested your credit would just be Phil, played by John.
It could be Batman. Inside joke.
It could very good. John, anything else about Trek Talks? I mean, that's really the whole thing right there. It's January 18th. Yep. Join us, trektalks.net. Share it far and wide. Barry, Chris, that's your invitation to share it far and wide. Make sure people know, donate. Share. Yeah, Hollywood Food Coalition. It's amazing.
Will do.
Yeah, there you go. John, thank you so much for popping in.
Thank you, John.
All right. Take care, my friend. We'll see you soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Too many Johns, too mighty to keep everybody the whole show long.
Too many. That's what I see. You never know who's going to pop into our show. One week it's Mike McMahon. Tonight, John Billingsley. See, there you go.
Next week, Shatner himself is going to roll through. My fellow Canadian.
And you got it, Chris. We absolutely will. So excellent. Let us get back to our conversation with Chris and with Barry. And we have another caller lined up. It's Brandon. Brandon, how you doing tonight?
It's actually pronounced John as well.
Fair enough.
No. What John Arminio brings in quality, I just bring in quantity. But no, thanks for having me on. Chris and Barry. I mean, there's a lot of just like praise that I can spew, and I will some of it. One of the things is, I mean, it's really amazing all of the work that you guys are doing. You are so ubiquitous. It's like Titmouse is animating pretty much everything but the dead these days, and
Coming soon, I'm sure.
Maybe we'll do that too. Also, I have that same Middle Earth tapestry that you have.
It is a great tapestry. I love that.
One. Yeah,
I love it. We're gonna, we're here to talk about Lower Decks. I do want to drop in that. Oh my God, did I love what you did with Scavenger's Reign?
Oh, right on.
Amazing.
Incredible. With regards to Lower Decks, so this show has so many different tones in it that all play together just really well. So many moments, I think, that are very memorable. I've mentioned before that the moment where Sulu describes the randomness of death as a reflection of the unexpected joys of life. That came at a moment where my family and I were reeling from a very sudden random loss, and we really needed to hear that. It was incredibly touching. It just came right at the right time. And the show is full of those beautiful moments that I think really speak to. There's something kind of for everybody who's watching. But so personally, for you guys, what moments or elements are you most proud of looking back at 5 seasons of Lower Decks?
Oh man, I don't know if I have as poignant. I love. This is a dumb one, but I love the joke.
Not at all.
When the Mugato is like manipulating his horn, watching.
Yes.
I think it's safe to say
also
everyone
love that
agrees.
I don't know. I think I remember after it aired, the people were pretty split on that one, but I certainly loved it.
That's
Whether
my kind of joke.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that joke too. I mean that Sulu moment is heartfelt, and I think there was some members on our crew that also happened to be going through, family grievances, and that I think that hit on a few people, even on our crew before the episode ever aired. So that was a very cool moment to do, and our director Mike Mullen on that, like he was a huge Star Trek fan, and a lot of times with I'll hit moments like that where like maybe it's an action scene that like someone as a huge Star Trek fan gets it. I'm like, can you make it the moment that you've always wanted to see, like on film or in the movie? Like, this is your Star Trek. That was kind of a movie episode too, and I was like, can you just make it your movie episode? Like just make that moment. And like when I first saw the boards and I heard when I heard Sulu's voice, I started to get a little emotional about it, and that was a really wonderful moment. I know that like George Takei's Brad was right in the booth with him, and that got heartfelt a little bit about that dude, just knowing like, oh my God, Brad's in the booth. But no, that's a great moment. Trying to think of what else. Rutherford having to say, I don't know. There's always like moments where like I feel like you don't realize how like your friends got your back kind of moment, and I think one of those moments is in Reflections with Rutherford and evil Rutherford flying, and like you realize that even though Rutherford quote unquote came up with the hologram of like a lamer ship compared to some racing ship, he manifested his friends in the holodeck, and his friends were there to support him, and that's always something that gets me a little emotional, like when you reveal that like, oh, he has a crew of support like behind him, and that's what Lower Decks is all about, like just really leaning into the support of your crew and believing in your your peers and stuff like that. So that's one of my favorite moments.
I love this line in the chat. Ashley T says, she's quoting, "Those sweet nerdy men are going to save us with math." It was one of my favorite Vortex lines from Mugato Gamato. It's so good.
Oh, that is a good one.
Hey, Barry, actually, this is for both of you. I wanted to ask, because you mentioned something about the look of the show and kind of leaning in toward the more cinematic qualities. And this is something that really surprised and delighted me, like episode after episode. kind of watch and you get involved in the story, and then all of a sudden you go to this shot and you just go like, okay, wait a minute, this looks like a movie. There's something with the Cerritos or some set piece, and it just elevates the show that looks way beyond what my expectations were for, an animated comedy Star Trek. And I'm wondering if that's something that you guys played with in the production of this series in particular. Do you feel like all of your animation kind of is leading and lending itself to that anyway? Tell me about how that comes about.
I mean, I think every season. I mean, Chris knows more than I do, but most shows get canceled after the first season. That's just typical nature. This is like the first show that's ever been picked up. So a benefit to that is you do get like another chance to be like kind of post-mortem what happened last season, and you kind of learn like how to improve, how to do better, like what we liked, what we didn't like, and how can we do better. So every season is another chance just to get the look right or start on a stronger foot from the show. But like one thing, since I've been working with Chris for so long, and a lot of things I learned about from him and like people like the officers of the Titmouse and like Juno, is that I think I myself didn't know we could push cartoons so far. I worked at some other studios, and there was always kind of like a cap on what I thought we could do. And when I got to Titmouse, I realized how much we can push shots at each level. Either we can push the character design in this certain moment, or we can push in animation. Oh, we can push the quality of the animation here. Like while we it's hard. Like I feel like in some ways I'm like trying to like just control the energy of a production sometimes, and like
you can't imagine how much happens in the edit and the color correct.
Yeah. What do you think, Chris, about that? Like how much we can push stuff, and since I don't know.
It's really what's different about animation is, when you shoot I've only directed a couple live action things, but what you shoot is what you shoot, and depending on your budget, you might not be able to go back and reshoot anything. Where in animation, you could just keep drawing until someone rips the pencil out of your hand. So you really have the opportunity to do whatever you want, budget and schedule allowing. What was interesting about this, of that like comedy action like line is when, Mike brought the show to us, they had some designs that were done for the pitch that were much more, I'd say, cartoony or network, like maybe primetime cartoon designs. And then we did a design pass that was much more action oriented, because Mike had said he was a fan of Venture Brothers, so we push it in that. And he's like, well, it really still has to work for that primetime comedy. We landed in this zone that I think really worked, which like respected the comedy origin, so we could play the scenes that Barry was talking about. When you want to shoot it flat, you want to do a proscenium scene and have everybody get their comedic reactions, but you can also, the proportions were such that you could do action scenes and have somebody run and jump and kick and fight, and and that works too. So it was every decision is super thoughtful in animation, because when once you make a decision, you got to live with it for years. And anyway, I'll shut up.
No, you're good. Yeah.
Brandon, any other thoughts or questions tonight for us?
No, I mean, I was leaving on saying that, Barry, you said that people kind of throw these kinds of, like an animated show, they're just sort of like, toss it out right away. And I kind of did that when I first heard animated Star Trek. I was like, yeah, boo. Man, was I wrong. You guys absolutely nailed it. It was incredible, and one of my favorite Trek shows so far.
Me too.
Bravo.
Thanks, you guys.
Excellent. Brandon, take care. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye. All right. Calling us from the Cerritos, as he does, it's Alan. How you doing tonight, Alan?
Look at you right there.
Yes.
Called every week
Guys.
for 5 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Still there.
It's as John and Ashley know, guys, first of all, welcome to the show. It's good to have you here. And I just I spend a lot of Monday nights calling into this show, and these guys have been with me nearly every step of the way. So thank you very much. I appreciate everything you guys have done for the show and to get this out to us. It's been a pleasure watching it these past few years. Speaking of these guys, the thing I guess that I've kind of been curious about is, it seems like with most of the shows, there's a point where a little bit of the actor starts to blend into the character that they're portraying. And obviously, with an animated show, you guys have a hand in that too. Is there something of Eugene or Tawny or Jack or Noel that has sort of like informed how you've chosen to animate their characters, or any of the characters, really? Is there something about Paul F. Tompkins that
I was going to make that joke, Alan.
I mean, his birdiness very, very much comes through.
Yes.
Yeah.
You said he's already played a human golden retriever. How birdie can we make this bird?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, one thing that's and I'm gonna pass this over to Barry, but one thing that was an incredible weird stroke of luck is, like, in many cartoons, the voice actor does not resemble physically the character design, right? If you look at Bugs Bunny, Eric Bauza doesn't look like Bugs Bunny, right?
No.
But Tawny and Jack actually looked like their character design. So when we did the live action crossover, it was like, whoa, what a stroke of luck that these guys can play their characters that actually look like them. It's crazy. So I would say that they do influence quite a bit, going to table reads early on before the pandemic, when you did it in the real world. I feel like seeing them was super inspirational, but I'm gonna throw it back to
No,
Ben.
yeah, I think nobody. I think Tawny can read the fastest and most articulate line reads than anybody, and Mike can read. Mike McMahon can read super fast, and he's doing always scratch on for a lot of the lines.
Oh, yeah.
he has a specific line, and I'm always amazed at how fast she can read. So like all the delivery like super influences the animation. Like I'm always like, Chris, I don't know if you feel the same, but every little stammer, I love hearing stammers.
yeah.
I love animators getting a stammer, like Boimler stammers a lot. He's always like, what back in one day, like that, what, like animators. Like I love seeing animators like love that, because you see the mouth go like just like little
A lot
things
of
like
shows
that, like,
used to cut that out. They used to cut out the breaths and cut out the stammers, but that's something I really, well, it depends on the show, but when I have a say in it, I love to push for getting more of those stammers and those awkward moments. It really services comedy.
yeah, like Eugene comes off just as sweet as he sounds, and he's just like that in real life. Like Noelle might be maybe the most opposite. Like she sounds exactly like you think, but like I don't know if Noelle gets that angry in person.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm always like whenever she like growls or like her Hulk growl comes out, and I'm always like, whoa, I didn't know she could do that. Like I don't know if she ever does that so much in real life, but she's just as sweet as the sweet side of Tendi. But the princesses of the Windsor constellations, I'm always pretty impressed by. I'm like, whoa,
That's the Orion side.
yeah.
Right. Well said. Alan, any other thoughts, questions for our guests?
Well, I'm going to pitch something, John, and I'm just throwing this out there.
Okay.
At one point, there was a thriving Mission Log Teespring store.
Yes.
That had some very cool designs.
Oh yeah. Until CBS came along, right?
Yeah. Well, legal issues. Well, we could iron those things out. But I mean, since we've got guys who make T-shirts too, I'd like to see a Titmouse take on Ethos Pathos logos and some of the old Mission Log classic designs.
Okay. Chris, Barry, I might have to email you after the show. If only we had some connection, some line of communication with CBS. Maybe we could get all that hammered out. But I like what you think, Alan, and I like how you sprang that on us in a live show, so we can't say no. So. Good job. That's why you get to keep coming back week after week.
The best way to
Absolutely.
pitch things is ambush style. So
I love it. Excellent, man. Thank you so much, and we'll talk again.
Thank you guys. It's been a pleasure watching the show, and I will cede the floor to the next caller.
Bye,
Thanks so
Alan.
much.
Right on.
Take
Thank
care,
you.
Alan. Be good. Hey, before we bring in Paul Harveth, Alan brought up something that also Brandon brought up, and we were talking a little bit before, which is there was this fan reaction right away, just from the announcement of a comedy animated Star Trek, and people freaked out, and not in the best way, not in the best sense of freaked out. There was this immediate knee-jerk reaction about that. But you both had the opportunity from the inside to really think about this, see the direction it's going. And like you said, Barry, a full year before anybody saw it, you're there in the trenches, you know how it's going to come out. Did you feel confident from the beginning? Did you feel like, oh no, they're going to eat us alive? What was the sense for that year plus?
How are you looking at it, Chris?
Well, I wasn't worried because I knew we had something good, and we'd been through this. This goes back to the thing I was saying about authenticity, right? Because I remember going through this. The very first series that we made at Titmouse was a show called Metalocalypse that we did for Adult Swim, right? And when it was announced, the metalhead community was very vocal online against it, right? Was like, this is gonna suck. This is gonna be making fun of metal. This is not what we're about. We're gonna and they were predisposed to hate it. And I grew up loving metal. Everybody on that show did. Brendan Small's an incredible musician, and we dug into we're gonna make this a celebration, even though the characters are dumb and the situations are dumb. The metal is going to be real, and it's not going to be some shitty Josie and the Pussycats. I remember Mike Roush, who's our animation supervisor, who worked a lot on Lower Decks, came up with something similar to I don't know if you're familiar with animation mouth charts, but he came up with something similar for guitar fingering and figuring out all the positions. And we would shoot Brendan Small playing the guitar and make sure that when people watched the show, that if they knew about playing the guitar, that the characters were actually playing the song that was being played on the show. And I was like, we're going to do the same thing with Lower Decks that we do with every other project, and make sure, because we're fans, we're going to make the show that we want to see and that is authentic to Star Trek. And I feel like that's what we did. Barry,
It did.
take it away.
I think I was along with fans when I first heard that there were because Chris P probably knew about it before I ever started on the show. Some of those talks are way before production artists like myself are involved. So when I first heard they were making one, I didn't know we were doing it. I was like, what's that going to be about? I don't know. And then
I love this idea of you signing the contract. Man, this is gonna suck.
But then they showed me the Bible. Mike had his pitch Bible, and he's shown some of the artwork from that stuff. And the first page, it kind of laid out the whole episode in one page, I don't know, 200, 300 words, maybe something like that. And I got it instantly. I was like, oh, this is going to work. I just knew it. Mike is, just kind of I don't know, a good channeler of just tone and eliminating worries, just with the written word, because the scripts ultimately made my day. Being able to read a script as an audience member, because the only time I got to really view it as an audience member was the first time I read it, and I'm laughing at this show that doesn't exist yet, that I'm now burdened with making as good as I just read. I've set my expectations high reading it, and now I have to execute it to make sure everybody else experiences it the way I did. Right. So it was just from the writing. I just do any worry was alleviated from the first, and I think in the first episode, the first scene with Boimler and Mariner, it's 2 or 3 minutes. You kind of learn their dynamic. It's very hard to set up a tone in a show in the first few minutes of a show, and it does that. And I'm like, I could already tell this is going to be great. It's if the first 3 minutes like this, and it's the first episode, I know the rest of the season is going to be consistent, and I know it's going to be going forward in a way that is not at all offensive to Star Trek. And if anything, it's channeling the spirit of what makes it great.
Nice. Let's jump over to Paul. How's it going tonight?
It's going perfect. Hey, there's John. There's our new friends from Titmouse Productions.
Yeah.
We feed titmice every morning. I see them come up and grab the bird seeds.
Oh,
Weird,
nice.
interesting name for a company that does animation, but we'll get to that another year. So, John, tonight we've talked about heavy metal. We got T-shirts. They're feeding LA, and finally we're talking about Magatos pleasuring themselves. It's sort of like our Discord community. That's what it reminds me of.
See, there you go. It all comes full circle. I love it. Yes.
Wait, full circle, gentlemen. First of all, thank you from the heart. My wife and I love this show.
Great.
And I've said more than once on this show how just fantastic it is. The first episode was pretty intense. That first thing you're talking about was like, what the heck just happened? And I don't know if I can handle this because I'm too old. Then you slowed it down. I don't know if you did it on purpose, but it slowed down. But then we get used to the cadence, right? You get used to 23 minutes of all this, and then you watch other tracks. It's like, man, these are really slow. I have one burning question, which drove me crazy. And on this program, I said more than once that what you were doing to me was every week you changed the opening fight scene and you didn't. And this is how good it was. So you have, the standard scene, and then you came in with a hand holding the Enterprise, and then there was the lines being drawn by those people, and then a ship flies through and all this. And I was convinced that every week you were adding a new one. But as I went back, I thought, maybe all this was coming at me at once, and my eyes just caught each individual fight thing happening. Can you clear this up for me?
This is Paul's Roman Empire. Like,
It's
no,
really the same. I'm confused. Is it just my mind? Or are you guys that good?
It was once every season we changed it.
Every season, I got that. Yes.
Yeah, every season. Yeah, not weekly. It's as much as we'd probably love to be able to do that. That would probably be a huge burden on production to come up with a new thing to add every episode or every week per se. But yeah, every season there's something new. I have like a document essentially that was like every season would come around and I'd be like, well, what do you want to add this year, Mike? And I'd have like, 20 more ships added, and eventually,
LOL.
my 10, 15 year plan, if we were going on that many seasons, was like, you wouldn't be able to see anything. It'd be like so chaotic and crammed with stuff, but like you'd always have, maybe you could catch something new every season, but just building on itself. I think maybe I might have even pitched other shots change every season. But no, it was just the one battle, and then any like adjustments to the Cerritos. I think we had a little adjustment between seasons 1 and 2, like that was updated, but the shots stayed exactly the same. But yeah, every season we would add, that one little extra bit. This last season though, we added 3 things. We added like the hand and V'ger and the Tholians, creating a web in the back. But besides that, like every season was just like, let's just add one thing, and then this last season
wasn't that Mike Roush's hand?
It was Mike Roush's hand. That was our animation supervisor
awesome.
who did the same.
Nice.
Who did the same guitar
awesome.
fretting. Yeah. He photographed his hand and almost made. He did it pretty much like stop motion, and then we didn't work to make it green and stuff. But he posed out his own hand grabbing everything. So he is Apollo.
There was a tiny ship that flies through with somebody chasing them, right? In the very end of it, it's like a tiny little ship. Has that always been there?
I'm trying to think. That would probably have been the Klingon bird of prey being chased by a Cardassian.
Yes, that's what or the other way around.
Not a Cardassian fighter. It might have been a Romulan. Maybe it was a Romulan one.
Okay, is that this year or has that always been there?
No. I think it's whenever we did more versions of like a new model or something. Like, oh, let's add that one and let's add that one. So once we did, and it might have been season 3, but they fly. Oh no, it's the oh my gosh, why am I? The guys with the they're like, you don't see their faces, and they're the Breen. It's a Breen.
Yeah,
it was.
It's a Breen ship.
Okay.
But it's the same ship that flies in the foreground, and then it's in the background. It's not a different ship. It's the same too. It's like they're chasing in a circle, and
I feel so much better. Thank you for being here. That's all solved.
Yeah,
I'm going to leave Paul. I'm going to leave you here with this episode 5-9. I think it's Vision Quest, right? Is the name of it? One of the quintessentially great Star Trek episodes ever, and I think in history we'll treat that as just a remarkable piece of art. So I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you, congratulations, and thanks for being here tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Bye, Paul.
Take care, Paul. We got a couple more callers left. We definitely want to get to everybody. Mark, welcome. How you doing tonight?
I'm good, John. Thank you. And yourself?
Good, good, good. What
Hi, Mark.
is on your mind tonight for our special guests?
Well, yes, as Mission Log's resident urban/community planner, I wanted to ask them how hard is it to design the spaces that we see based on based on the information you get from the scripts or Mike McMahon, and then turn it into an actual thing. For example, in the original series, they are often doing first contact, but Cerritos is mostly doing second contact. So we're getting to see sometimes civilizations that we've seen in other Star Trek as well. How difficult it was to match what we'd seen in previous Star Trek, along with seeing the second contacts that the crew are doing, and designing these city spaces and places that we get to see, especially since some of them may be really ancient places with Greek columns all the way up to the star bases. I was curious, how much work really goes into that, as it's something, as I did my master's in community planning, that I kind of learned to do of, designing these spaces myself, and I've always been curious from an animation standpoint.
It is funny you mentioned community spaces because I feel like, I don't know, Chris, it's something I'm always like when I see like some like background artists do designs, and I'm like, can you just add like some sidewalks or some railings?
Yeah.
Just adds
Characters gotta live in that.
yeah, like railings, like safety. People falling off buildings. You know what I mean? Like,
Sorry, the planning variance doesn't work, so I'm afraid they're going to have to decline.
right. Like it's kind of like one of my first times like drawing backgrounds and building. Like as a kid, you're like drawing characters and you got to draw the background, and you realize like you weren't drawing anything with sidewalks or anything like that. Like just build a building sitting on a road, plain. Anyways, but no. I my philosophy with the show is you should be able to look at anything ship-wise or environment-wise and easily translate it. Like, I don't know, we've seen these characters show up at the live-action show, so I'd want to make sure that it could go vice versa. So, like, if there's anything you saw in the show, we'd hope that like it'd be easily translatable to, a live-action matte painting, like we used to. And I love all those matte paintings. I mean, I think the biggest thing to stick to was a lot of those were 4:3, like unless you got like the Blu-rays, and not everything's remastered, so a lot of that stuff still is 4:3. So it was kind of a pleasure to be able to just expand it a little bit, like fill in the gaps, like Kronos or something like that. But no, as for like new spaces, a lot of it was generically set in the script. What was great about the scripts, it's hard to be a writer and try to not over detail a script into like don't like you don't want to put like your artists like up against the wall, or narrow down their perspective of what something can be. And they were pretty great about like describing something generic enough in very simple lines, and then we'd always have like a viz dev meeting about what the script actually needs, and we talk with Mike and maybe the writer of that episode, be me, my art director Nolan Obena, and our character design supervisor Marisa Livingston, and they just kind of tell us like what's the overall vibe, like what do you need to have in the episode, and then after that it was kind of like free reign for the artists to kind of like add details and kind of come up with their own ideas and add stuff to the background. And what was fun about the show is like we kind of went to a different planet every episode. And it's always fun because then you never knew what you were doing the following week. Chris, you have anything to add to that? It's just background design, environment design.
Great. I got nothing to add.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Hey,
go ahead.
Oh, I would say, Mark, we'll go a little bit short just because we make sure we jump over to Cherie for the last word tonight. But thanks for that excellent question, and Barry, thanks for
thank you.
Yeah, thanks for enlightening us with that. All right, Mark, we'll see you in the Discord.
Mark.
Take care.
Thanks for watching.
Bye. Thank you.
Nice Moopsie.
Thanks, Mark.
Beware of Moopsie.
We don't reference it or make eye contact with it.
Nice. All right. Take care and good luck, Mark. All right. And to wrap things up, let's welcome in Cherie. How's it going tonight?
Good.
Hey.
Speaking of Moopsies, I'm waiting on my Moopsie shirt, so I'm so
Right
excited because I thought I'd missed the initial drop of it. And I thought I missed out forever, but then when you released all the shirts again for the 5th season, I was like, yes, Smoopsy!
Oh, not
like
me
your
panic
current shirt.
ordering all the peanut hamper ones.
But yes, for now, I have my Cetacean Ops shirt.
Yes.
Yeah. I do want to say, because I know everyone's always like, oh, I wasn't sure about Lower Decks. I was 100% on board.
That's
First
true.
trailer,
That's
Nice.
true.
100% on board.
Fantastic.
And my only concern was like, oh, I've been fooled by trailers that look really good before. Star Wars. That was my only concern, but I was like, yeah, man, if the show fits the vibes of this trailer, I'm all in, and yeah.
Perfect.
Nice. Well said.
So,
Excellent.
I've loved it. Yeah, and I just wanted to know what do you have a favorite T-shirt that has come from the show?
Man,
I like that one. I like the whales a lot.
Oh
That's a good
yeah,
one.
Asian
I think I feel like I'll have to like go back and look at our analytics, but I think that was our best selling shirt, the one that you're wearing right now.
Oh.
I was so
I'm
excited.
pretty sure
when
it's
Asian Ops
it's
showed
up there. If it's not the number one, it's up there.
Now I want to know. I'm like, where does the Tendy shirt, the light green mint colored Tendy shirt, rank? Like, that's my favorite.
Man,
so
I don't
wanna
have
know
all
where
the
she-
analytics in
I
my
know
brain.
it.
I'm gonna have to look at it. I like
have to
that.
know.
I like that. I like that. I mean, I like Barry likes like beefy muscle men. I like apes and ape-like space apes. So I love that Mugato shirt.
Nice. Yeah.
Very good.
If it had muscles on it, I probably drew it.
Yeah.
I did do the Mugato one. Our
Did
producer,
you do?
Megan-
Did you do shirtless ransom?
Yeah.
Lava tubes.
Yeah, your lava tubes are perfect. The whale shirt was actually done by our producer Megan Trevino, and it's funny. Like the shirts that sell the most, she did. So she did do more shirts.
Trust women and such as.
But
Who made the Moopsy shirt?
That was one of our prop designers. Like every season, we do try to get a different artist, kind of like to take the reins on it, and then usually Mike McMahon and myself and Megan usually kind of weigh in on designs. Like if Mike might want something specific or not, but that would have been by our prop designer Patrick. Oh my gosh, he's gonna be so mad at me for getting his last name. He's Irish.
Well, he can call in next week and let us know.
Yeah.
How it goes.
Oh my God, what is his last name? Oh my gosh, Phil Murphy. I remember.
Phil
It's not
Murphy.
that. Philip Murphy. He's drawn a lot of stuff for Star Trek and Hasbro actually, which
Yeah,
very
he's
talented.
done a lot of the didn't he do stuff for the cruise too?
Yeah, he did a lot of he does a lot of promo
wow.
art. They
There's
use
a
it for
lot of good merch for the
Yeah.
cruise.
Yeah.
I'm not a big T-shirt guy. I was more hoping for like some offbeat action figures from Lower Decks, and I'm really bummed that I never got a Cube Dog action figure.
I have the Cube Dog shirt.
Oh, you got the
There is a
shirt.
Cube Dog shirt.
Yeah, I love the shirt. Yeah, but I still need an action figure that has no action other than just sitting there on a flat surface.
That'd be a good one.
It's a cube.
You need to speak it more, and maybe it'll.
I do, again, if we had
I
some
bet you can find
connection-
one on Etsy.
Okay, there we go. There we go. I'm
At
not,
Titmouse on Etsy, wild.
Yeah, I don't know nothing.
I'm not above buying unlicensed products. That's that's what happens. And I have a very important question. Just thinking about the creativity and the number of animators and the number of other things you do outside of the show itself. Ashley, this is a question for you. Well, on behalf of you to our guest, did anybody ever animate or do a rendering of Tendy and Rutherford kissing?
Oh, this is the most important question.
It really is the most important question. Does that exist somewhere?
I don't know if you want to Google that, but
I save search
Watch
result,
out
it's
for Rule
probably
34.
fine.
I mean,
Yeah.
I would just say across the entire show that line about being about what's will they won't they
Yeah.
has been a struggle across. So I'm sure in our boards or in somewhere there's probably some artists who went a little too far, but
Well, if they want to offload that art, you can give my email address.
But there was a lot of like back and forth, like in episode 406, that was Parth's Frankie Hart place, where they're like literally put in a situation together where they're forced to be a fake couple. Where I think we were towing the line every time there was that intimate moment. We were always towing the line, and it was Mike, finding it with Mike about where's the right line for the characters, about pushing it too far, pulling it back too little. So I'm sure we pushed it too far at some instances, and we have to edit ourselves down. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it exists.
Hey, thank you all for indulging us and let us go a little bit over. Cherie, any final word here before we say goodnight?
Did either of you have like a favorite cameo?
Cameo.
Anybody? I mean, 509, that last finale.
Yeah, there's so many.
All the cameos.
Everyone.
I think T'Pol was the real. I mean, Data. I mean, when I got to be in the record session for Brent Spiner and just hearing him say some of the lines was fantastic. Just him waking up the first time is such a cute moment. And then when I showed it to my wife, the episode, I don't show her anything until it's done, because that way it's all fresh. And when he at the very end when he goes, "Hello, I'm Data," and like she started laughing out really loud, like just that burst out, Data's a good moment. I always wish we could have a Data Jordy kind of like bromance episode or something. But I don't know, Chris, was there any other?
Oh man, I don't know. That 509 was great though, because of so many. They had the critical mass of yeah, man, I don't have a good answer for you. I don't know.
Hey, well, you know what? If you don't, there are some great comments in the chat here. We got to end it with this. Dave Takechi says, favorite cameo, Word Up. So you're not wrong, Dave Takechi. Well done. And yes, I do have a Zizix t-shirt. I'm very disappointed we never got a Zizix Starship, but maybe when Lower Decks comes back one day, who knows? Thank you, everybody who was in the chat. Ashley, our special guest, Cherie, thank you, everybody who called in. With that, Mission Log Live is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Technical production on Mission Log and Mission Log Live by the inextinguishable Earl Green. Be sure to visit podcast.roddenberry.com for the latest from Roddenberry Podcasts. If you'd like to support Mission Log directly, give us a look at patreon.com/missionlog. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Barry. Thank you, Cherie. Thank you, everybody who called in. Thanks to everyone who joined us live or later. Mission Log Live goes on a short hiatus for now, but stay tuned. We'll be back with more live shows before you know it.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.